What's up everyone and welcome back. I have just seen Mickey 17, so without wasting any time, let's get straight into it.
Hi, Mickey. Are you experiencing any vertigo?
I guess I am feeling a little dizzy.
So Mickey 17 is a 2025 release written and directed by Oscar-winning filmmaker Bong Joon-ho, and it's about the unlikely hero Mickey Barnes who finds himself in the extraordinary circumstance of working for an employer who demands the ultimate commitment to the job, to die for a living. The film stars Robert Pattinson, Naomi Ackie, Stephen Yeun, Mark Ruffalo, and Toni Collette. So we finally have the long-awaited next feature from, as I mentioned, Oscar-winning director Bong Joon-ho. Those of you who recognize that name will know that his film won a historic Oscar back in 2019 for the film Parasite, and us film nerds were very, very excited for what he was about to take on next. Now, a bit of history for myself and for Bong Joon-ho and for Korean cinema as a whole. I love this stuff. I didn't always, because I wasn't really exposed to it, but many, many years ago, a friend of mine invited me over to watch a film, and he had just said to me, "It's like, have you ever watched anything from South Korea before?" And I was like, no, frankly, I haven't. He showed me Old Boy, and that really changed my life, and it started this big love affair with filmmakers from South Korea in particular. Obviously, Old Boy, not a Bong Joon-ho film, that is a Park Chan-wook film, but then obviously I went back and I watched the films of Bong Joon-ho, the very famous Memories of Murder, and I found him a particularly unique director, not just for how masterful he was in setting a scene or creating a tone, but just how whimsical he could be at times, almost silly as well. And obviously it's been a couple of years since his last film, but this film was announced and he was going back to sci-fi again, so were we getting a kind of Snowpiercer type of Bong Joon-ho this time? Robert Pattinson was attached to the star, and that just made me even more excited, if I can be honest. And as I said, I have just seen it, and the TLDR is... it's pretty good. Pretty good, but let's get into the details of it. So we have this character of Mickey Barnes, whose whole thing is he needs to get off of Earth. This is set, I should say, in a fairly distant future where space travel is a thing. But he signs up to this Expendables program where their whole thing is they can die multiple times and their body is then reprinted with their consciousness and their memories so they can do the really dangerous jobs that intergalactic space travel will, I guess, require of them. And though it is in the trailer, so it is no spoilers, the kind of big thing that happens over here is there ends up being multiple of him. There are multiple of these Mickey clones, hence it being called Mickey 17. There's number 17 and number 18, and that's not a good thing because in this future world, you can't have multiples because it causes a whole bunch of issues, which I won't go into. So by all intents and purposes, it is quite a silly concept, but it seems kind of perfect for Bong Joon-ho to put his stamp on this kind of thing. The film is based on an original book, which was called Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. I sadly haven't read that, so I've got nothing to compare it to, but I'm just going to speak for what this film has to say. If we focus first on the man himself, Bong Joon-ho, it is just so fun to watch this guy. As I mentioned before, he is so good at creating a tone and an atmosphere, but it's just so unique and, as I said, whimsical to an extent, how this guy decides to use the camera in certain ways and frame his characters and even have them deliver certain bits of dialogue. And his textbook, very dry humor is all over this film, and it's much better for it because it is first and foremost quite funny. There is a bizarre and very absurd tone throughout this film and things characters say, and it comes with the territory when you do have a premise as frankly ridiculous as this. Mickey Barnes has to die many, many times, and he needs to keep being reprinted, and every time we do see it, it is wildly entertaining. And that's what we get in the kind of opening of this film. We start with Mickey and how he's in this situation. I did think for a second you were going to get the kind of freeze frame and the whole like, yeah, that's me, this is how I wound up in this mess, but you don't really, but it is kind of like that at the same time. But it is really entertaining how Bong Joon-ho sets the stage for what is to come in this film with the big inciting incident. Now, I do need to detract a little bit and give my one little bit of criticism for this film. It is maybe 10 to 15 minutes too long. And that being said, it is very well directed throughout and the way it is put together. I was never bored, but it is maybe slightly overlong and could use a bit of a cut here and there. But that being said, in the hands of a lesser director, this could have been an absolute train wreck of a film in managing the tone and in putting this fairly large story together, but Bong Joon-ho does it to really great effect over here, I have to say. If we move on to the cast, and that's a pretty big top-billed cast over here, I'll start with Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette. They play Kenneth and Ilfa Marshall. Now, Kenneth Marshall is this kind of, and it is very prescient, obviously, but he's this hybrid between like an Elon Musk and a Donald Trump. And there's a lot of people who are going to roll their eyes at that. But it is obviously pretty intentional over here with what Bong Joon-ho was going for. Again, I haven't read the book, so I don't even know if this character is in there. But Ruffalo is having the time of his life in this role, and he's really believable as this very powerful but really stupid sleazebag, almost dictator. He's the one who's behind this whole space program to colonize this great planet, and then he's got his partner in crime, his wife Ilfa, and her whole thing comes at the end of the film of why she wants to do this, and it is weirder than anything in the film, so I won't spoil it, but I just love seeing Toni Collette in something. I don't think I've ever seen her have a bad performance, and she's fantastic once again over here. And the two of them are just chewing the scenery with every bit of dialogue that they get, and they're both having a great time. And just how good is it to see Mark Ruffalo doing these things after he was stuck in Marvel movies for 10 to 12 years? Like, he went on to work with Yorgos Lanthimos and now Bong Joon-ho, and I actually can't wait to see who he works with next, because he was one of our great talented actors working in the modern age, and it's just great to see him back. If we move on to Naomi Ackie and both Steven Yeun, they're both very good in what they have to do, but I do think their characters are actually a little bit undersold, particularly in the case of Steven Yeun. Now, he's someone who I've been a huge fan of his since I first saw him in The Walking Dead. Yes, I was a fan of that TV series, big fan back in the day. And he is probably the most undersold here, where his character doesn't have all that much to do, but the guy just has a presence, in my opinion, and he is effective, but I did want to see more from him. And it's kind of the same with Ackie over here. Her character can sometimes be a little bit all over the place when you don't really know what her motivation truly is, but she's very convincing. She's very physical and very emotional, and I was happy with what she portrayed. Now, the one we really need to get onto here is the Robert Pattinson of it all. The arc that this guy has gone through since the Twilight movies, to working in a lot of indie films and working with some very good directors over the years, he has crept his way into becoming one of my favorite actors, I think, ever now, particularly for the roles that he's chosen and for the performances he's given. And it's no different over here. He's deciding to do a wacky little funny voice which never breaks. The guy's accent work is second to none. And the fact that he's got to play two versions of the same person with these distinct kind of differences, that's no easy task for an actor to do, and we've seen it go wrong before. But he is just so good in the way that you can just tell from the body language which is Mickey 17 and which is Mickey 18. And that is just a testament to how committed and how good this guy is as an actor. I love everything he has done since the Twilight films, at least on a personal note for him. I can't wait to see what comes next with him. Can they please start filming the Batman sequel? Please, I really want to see him as the Batman again. And now we'll just finally get into how I think the film works and I guess what it's trying to say. As with most Bong Joon-ho projects, this is kind of bursting at the seams with the amount of thematic messages that it has going on. I could spend probably a whole 20-minute video going into what this film really has to say, but I'll keep it very brief and very short over here. It's very clear that there's a message about colonialism and about invading and taking things which are not yours, and about dictatorships, but also, and this is a theme in a lot of Bong Joon-ho's most recent projects, if you look at Okja and even Parasite, it's about how the elite can treat the little people in life, and how sometimes the little people need to stand up, and that's the way that change is truly achieved. So you could say that he's kind of banging the same old drum. It's a good drum to bang, especially if you're living in the Western world at this point in time with how crazy times can be. So I, for one, am happy to see a director still going for this kind of work, especially a director with his kind of reach and his kind of esteem, because people will go and see this film, not just because it's distributed by Warner Brothers, but because Bong Joon-ho is attached to it, because people remember Parasite and the effect that that had on not just film fans, but I guess entertainment fans as a whole. And with that being said, it can feel a little bit overstuffed at times with things that are going on, and it can feel on the nose at points, but when it is on the nose, it's done purposely, and some people will say that's maybe a bit classless, but it actually didn't really affect me all that badly. But that is why I think the film is maybe 10 to 15 minutes too long. It is trying to cram quite a lot in there for what it has to say, maybe a little bit more focused, but when it all is said and done, I had a pretty damn good time with this film. It's funny, it's engaging, it looks incredible, and it definitely does not have that impact which Parasite had. I mean, Parasite is borderline a perfect film, if you ask me, so it was kind of hard to even reach that bar. But I'm really happy with what we got from Mickey 17, and I'm glad I went to see it. And finally, we come to that part of the video where I want to hear from all of you. If you have seen Mickey 17, please let me know down in the comments what you thought, if you liked it, if you hated it. If you haven't seen it, let me know if you're excited to see it. If you just have anything else to say, there's that comment section over there. Get churning out, it all really helps. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, play it in the background, do whatever you want. On last week's episode of the Adlib podcast, we discussed the Oscars and how kind of, not really crazy that was, but there were some surprises here and there. We should be on for this coming Monday at 7:30 p.m. in the UK or 8:30 p.m. in Malta, so be sure to tune in, given we are going ahead. But until the next time I see you, remember that every life is worth living, and thank you for watching.